Hey friend, just wanted to let you know that in today's video, you are going to see some different artwork. It comes from our friends at Thumb Follow Me. They are such a fun video creator for Come Follow Me for little kids. If you want to check them out, and you definitely should, make sure to check the description where there's a link to their videos. Doctrine and Covenants 89 through 92. Have you ever wished God would just hand you a detailed outline for your life, letting you know everything to do and to expect? While that sounds wonderful, it's not how he works. More often, revelation comes in pieces, with just enough information for you to take the next step. And that's exactly what Joseph Smith experienced in the early days of the church. Over the course of a few weeks, Joseph Smith received 4 revelations, each building on the last, even though they may have seemed to come out of nowhere at the time. But looking back, you can see exactly what God was doing, preparing Joseph and the church for the next right step. Let's dive in. February 1833 was a cold but wonderful month in Kirtland, Ohio. Joseph had finished his work on the New Testament translation, and the School of the Prophets had been meeting in the upstairs room of the Whitney store since January. The room where they met was small, estimated to be about 11 by 14 feet. On top of that, the room was sometimes filled beyond capacity with up to 25 men who would smoke their pipes and chew tobacco. You can imagine the mess this created. Emma Smith and other women who were hired to clean the space were overwhelmed, and Emma brought their frustrations to Joseph. Rather than trying to solve the problem on his own, Joseph brought it to the Lord. What he received was Doctrine and Covenants 89, most commonly referred to as the Word of Wisdom. While this might seem like it came out of left field, considering the men were literally chewing tobacco and smoking pipes as they learned the Word of God, there was a help and temperance movement across the United States as well. Reformers were pushing for better sanitation, hygiene, and health practices. Temperance movements began to pop up, calling for a total ban on alcohol. It seemed that God was moving good people in many places to live cleaner lives, literally, and this included a special call to his saints to an even higher standard of living. The Word of Wisdom also declared something important. Obedience to health laws is attached to spiritual blessings, including wisdom and knowledge. And the result? On February 22, 1833, Joseph entered the room where the School of the Prophets was held. As soon as he opened the door, he found the room completely filled with tobacco smoke. He left, closing the door, and when he came back, he announced to the men inside that he had a new revelation to share with them. According to Zebedee Coltrane, when the Word of Wisdom was read, 20 of the 21 men in attendance used tobacco, and they all, quote, immediately threw their tobacco pipes into the fire. Although the Word of Wisdom wasn't initially enforced as a commandment, it demonstrated that the Lord was preparing the saints to be both physically disciplined and spiritually powerful. A couple weeks later, on March 8th, Joseph received another revelation, section 90. In the middle of Joseph's joy over his first baby to survive childbirth, finishing the New Testament translation, and the School of the Prophets, his first presidency counselor, Jaques, had been excommunicated. About a month later, Frederick G. Williams had been called to fill the vacancy left by Jesse. However, the Lord wanted these callings to be made formally and officially, and so he gave Joseph the revelation in Doctrine and Covenants 90, confirming Sidney Rigdon and Frederick G. Williams as Joseph's counselors in the first presidency. The revelation also made something clear that hadn't been before. Joseph's counselors were accounted as equal with him in holding the keys of this last kingdom. So as long as Joseph was alive and these men were in good standing, they shared the responsibility of holding the keys of the kingdom. What a weight off Joseph's shoulders. In this same revelation, Joseph was told to continue working on the inspired translation of the Bible by returning to the Old Testament, specifically to work on the words of the prophets. But the next day, as Joseph began working again in the upper rooms of the Whitney store, it seems that the question came up of, what is the exact meaning of the prophets? Joseph's copy of the Old Testament included the Apocrypha, books from biblical times that had been included in most early Bibles, but whose authenticity had come into question. Joseph inquired of the Lord and received an answer in the form of Doctrine and Covenants 91, which told Joseph that while the Apocrypha was worth reading by those with the Spirit, it wasn't necessary for him to translate it. Less than a week later, Joseph received another revelation, now Doctrine and Covenants 92, regarding the newest member of the first presidency. At this point in the church's history, only the most faithful saints had been asked to live the law of consecration, and for some reason, Frederick Williams had not yet been invited to do so. However, as a member of the First Presidency, it seemed appropriate that he be required to live all the laws of the saints. Consequently, Joseph was given the revelation in Doctrine and Covenants 92, in which Frederick G. Williams was officially added to the United Firm, a select group of church leaders responsible for handling sacred finances and church business. To us, it might seem like these revelations were random. One about health, one about church leadership, one about the Apocrypha, and another about consecration. But the Lord was preparing Joseph and the saints for the next phase of the restoration, one revelation at a time. And he does the same with us, rarely giving us the big picture, but definitely giving us enough light to feel confident as we move forward. And that's what's happening in Come Follow Me this week.